Hello students, welcome back to another session of the Analyst for 23rd of July 2023. Here we will be providing you useful insights tailored suitably for UPSC aspirants from the Hindu and the Indian Express. Now before I begin the session, let me inform you that you should be finding on the handouts for this session in the description which is given below. Okay, now looking at the table of contents of the most important articles for today, the first article will be with respect to the artificial intelligence and how the artificial intelligence technologies have unlimited potential, but also there are some risks and challenges associated with the same. So we shall be discussing this. Second article is with respect to food security imperatives in our world, where a recent report has been highlighting some of the pressing concerns of our world right now with respect to food security, and also what should be our path towards reaching zero hunger, which is a sustainable development goal number 2. The next article is with respect to the latest committee that has been set up for reviewing the statistical scene of India. There we will be looking at the various considerations of the new panel. The next article is again with respect to Miyawaki method of afforestation. This is a very innovative concept when we talk about afforestation, and we are talking about afforestation because it is a pressing demand of our time. Finally, we will be concluding the session with artificial lab meat, where there have been various debates as of now whether we should be going on with artificial meat or not. So, looking at the very first article, it is about artificial intelligence's unlimited potential. This is relevant because in GS3 we have awareness in the fields of information technology, space, computers, robotics as portions of our syllabus. Now, before beginning the topic, let me tell you a brief anecdote. Suppose you are operating on your mobile phone. You need to send a text to your friend that maybe you will not be able to attend his party today. Now, you do not want to be sounding too rude. You also do not want to sound too polite. Now, the thing is that you yourself has to use your own inherent abilities, or I can tell it, you can use your own judgment and intelligence in framing that particular text message to a friend. So it is you, a human being, who is doing that. Now with respect to artificial intelligence, the thing is different. Now, artificial intelligence has the ability of your human intelligence and of your human judgment of how you should be sending that text, or what words should be used in that particular text, so that your friend may not be feeling hurt or may not be feeling left out. So, AI or artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer to express the facts, information, whatever that is available at AI's disposal with intelligence and a possible amount of discernment, which is a sense of judgment. So, AI will be processing information with the level of human intelligence and judgment. The few examples of AI we all know as of now, right? The natural language processing, or we know we have used this in our Google Translate. Google Translate does what? It converts the text from one language to another. This is helped with the use of natural language processing. The next example with respect to AI is machine learning, where you will be giving the computer or the program a huge amount of data, and the machine or the computer will be analyzing each and every data and learning on, and also giving you useful insights of the data, insights analysis of the data. The next is about deep learning. Deep learning is using artificial neural networks, or these are some specially designed or very complex algorithms which are connecting various amounts of computational power and giving you a far more precise output than machine learning, or it goes beyond machine learning to give you a deeper insight of the data at large. So these are some examples of AI. Now with respect to AI, we have three stages of development, and let me tell you at the beginning only, we are in the first stages of artificial intelligence. The first stages is known as artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI. ANI relies heavily on machine learning or large amount of data, where it can process the data and will be giving you the solutions or whatever issues you are finding in AI in a particular problem only. For example, the example here can be the case of Alexa, Siri, or these are voice assistants, right? So they can do only a particular amount of task that you have given it. So this is only for case specific usage. Next is the case of artificial general intelligence. This is much more superior than ANI. AGI relies on machine intelligence and not learning anymore. It is not learning, it is now being intelligent based on the learning before. So this is a stage 2 where it will be totally almost as similar as a human being, and maybe it will be more superior, little more superior than a human being, right? The final stage of artificial intelligence is known as artificial superintelligence. This is the stage 3 where the machine or the computer will become conscious. Conscious means being sentient. Sentience means that you are having emotions, feelings, a dash of creativity. That means you are, in addition to your available data sets, to available knowledge, you're also becoming sentient, right? You're becoming more than a human being in this respect. Okay, now the unlimited potential of AI has been seen through various recent developments. The first development that we can talk about is shown here. This may be seeming or looking to you as a very weird structure, but let me tell you, this is a protein fold. This is a protein fold. Now what is a protein fold? This is a complex 3D arrangement of amino acids. And this is actually a picture developed by Google's DeepMind AI. This is a Google's technology which is actually arranging the various folds of amino acids. This is a 3D structure, and the 3D structure of proteins actually give rise to various functions of our human body, right? And let me tell you, the arrangement of these 3D amino acids are the most difficult thing if it is done by a human being. It would take you more than thousands and thousands of years to just create a single pattern of fold, which has been made possible using AI in just a matter of few hours, days or months. So we can use this for more targeted drug delivery, for more better understanding of our human evolution. So this is a very crucial insight, and this reflects that AI is a very high potential game changer. Next, if I take the case of generative AI, or the ability of AI to produce generative elements, this can be with respect to text, this can be with respect to stories, this can be with respect to poems, this can be with respect to art, music, you just name it. Generative AI, we have seen this in the case of ChatGPT, Bing AI, Google Bard. So they are the examples of generative AI. They are almost, not exactly, but almost close to artificial general intelligence. They are not yet at this stage 2, but they are still somewhere between the stage 1 and stage 2. So with generative AI, we can create such generative content. If we look at the application of AI in sports, we have various motion detective cameras, we have AI in chess, we have AI in Go, a very popular game. So AI is also used in such sports. With respect to Unreal Engine, this is a gaming engine which generates the graphics of a game. So we are getting nowadays using AI very high amounts of photorealistic images, photorealistic videos, that you cannot at all distinguish a real footage of, say, a mountain or a river flowing below it and the image or the video which has been generated by Unreal Engine. So it's a fascinating scenario. Next, there's a company known as Sentient Technology that uses AI for fraud detections in financial transactions. We have impending upon us the Industrial Revolution 4.0, where we have more intricacies with respect to the technology, with respect to Internet of Things, with respect to various applications of industrial application, which relies heavily on automation. Now, automation will be reliant on artificial intelligence in the near future, and that is being already seen in some of the countries such as Germany, France, and also in the case of US. Climate modeling is very important for predicting the changing weather events and also predicting the future climate events. So we can even predict climate change from using AI. Transportation is being seen a wide range of transformation, especially in the case of self-driving cars. These are the cars of the future. These are the cars of the future, specifically led by companies such as Tesla. They are testing out their cars which are totally driven by AI, using spatial sensors, spatial cameras, and most importantly, artificial intelligence. And lastly, we cannot ignore the role of governance. For example, a government has a large set of beneficiaries, for example, for a food security scheme. Now, there will be many issues like double counting of beneficiaries, like we are having a huge leakage of funds from this particular food scheme. So, what AI can do? AI can keep a track of the transactions. AI can totally filter out dubious beneficiaries, double counted beneficiaries. So, in case of governance also, we can have effective amount of artificial intelligence. We can even go for target-based government intervention with respect to data that we have generated over a particular period of time for a particular vulnerable section of community. So, artificial intelligence plays a very important role in the future governance of our world. Then, what are the risks and challenges out of this? So far, we are having a good amount of picture of artificial intelligence, but there are some risks and challenges, especially in the case of a limit on the development of the AI labs. AI labs can be with respect to companies such as Google, OpenAI. These are companies which are accelerating their progress in this field, but they are not being aware of the disruption that such a development can have on jobs, right, and also on dominance. Now let me explain this. AI, such as generative AI, such as GPT-4, have higher reasoning power and higher comprehensive power. So GPT-4 has the potential to replace the software engineers, to replace the blog writers, to replace content writers, right? And even they can also replace teachers like us. So there are many jobs at stake with respect to the rapid disruption or rapid development of AI, especially if we take the case of GPT-4. It went from GPT-3 to 3.5 to 4 in just a matter of a period of around 6 months. So there is huge pace of development in this arena. But the thing is that, are the jobs in the industry or in the economy, are they being able to catch up with the trend? No, right? So there will be a huge amount of job disruption. There can be dominance of the big tech companies like Facebook, Google, OpenAI. So these companies are generally having these technologies at large. So they are evolving this from their own point of interest. So we can have in the future a dominance of these companies that can penetrate our lives. So we must be aware of this risk at large. Then there is a risk of the human beings losing their creativity and profundity. This means that human beings are creative creatures, right? They rely on their creativity, imagination. So they must be intacting them and protecting them from the artificial intelligence. Then in artificial intelligence models, such as even if we can take the example of Bard, Bing, ChatGPT, there are some biases, or these biases generally came from the programmers that actually programmed those algorithms. So there have been several cases of biases that has crept into these technologies. There are cases of manipulative AI, or using AI for generating fake news, for generating deep fakes. These are videos of individuals who are not actually being recorded of their own accord. So without their permission, we are creating a morphed video of them speaking something that they never really spoke of. Then there are some issues with respect to the coding element, because technologies like GPT-4, they can create complex codes or coding devices that even human beings cannot comprehend at a such faster level. Right? So these are creating threats, not for the software engineers out there, but also for cyber security imperatives, because terrorists or potential disruptors can use these platforms to create such complex codes to totally hack our systems. And finally, data is the new oil. Using data, the big tech companies, the government can use to manipulate our tastes and preferences. If you have the access of a large amount of consumers' data, and you know that these consumers will be purchasing a particular amount of things, so you can influence their consumer behavior. So data is the new oil of the future. We are having data with respect to our email addresses, with respect to website history, our browsing history. We are having with respect to our location history. So these are being used by artificial intelligence with respect to their machine learning. So using this, they are manipulating various amounts of elements. So there is an imperative that we must be acting quickly in this scenario. The first is thing that the big tech companies like the Google, Facebook, they are the early movers. So it is imperative that they will be having some early advantages. So the governments and all the other stakeholders of the society, they must be ensuring that we must not be having early mover advantage, that everyone must be equal in this respect, that everyone can be taking a part of this technology. Then the rules of the game, for example, training data. What should be amount of training data, where the data will be stored, the algorithm bias of the programmers, definitions of the very term artificial intelligence, storage, right? These are the rules of the game. That means these are the things that will be influencing the future regulatory norms. So we must be devising some regulatory norms, and here the government must be playing a definitive role. We in this feature, we can look at the draft European Union AI Act. Here we will be looking at the draft AI Act, which the European Union has recently passed, or say they are deliberating right now, that is trying to define these rules of the game. They have so far given some definitions, and a comprehensive discussion will be taking in the EU Parliament. So let us see what happens. But other nations can also be adopting this particular sin. And finally, leaders like Elon Musk, they have proposed that we must be putting a moratorium of at least 6 months to 1 year on all these AI labs, because these labs are trying to overcut each other, being too much competitive for this particular scenario. So we must be having a balanced role where the government must be coming in as a regulatory, because this particular scene is not at all regulated by the government. So there must be specific case laws in this respect. Right. Now with respect to the next article, this is with respect to a report known as the Global Report on the Food Crisis. This is very important with respect to GS2, where we have issues with respect to poverty and hunger. Now, poverty and hunger are intricately linked, where we have the Sustainable Development Goal number 1 to eradicate poverty, the goal number 2 with respect to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Now again, with respect to this, we have a previous year question in 2018 where we are asked that how far do you agree that the focus on the lack or availability of the food as the main cause of hunger takes the attention away from the ineffective human developmental policies in India. So to answer this question, you need to first understood the basics of hunger and food security and how these two are linked. Specifically, we will be walking this through this report. But initially, let me address the elephant in the room. What is food security at large? Food security is a condition where a particular human being, most importantly, has access to healthy, nutritious food at all amount of time for their physical well-being, social well-being, and economic well-being. The four pillars of food security are availability of food. That means the food should be available. For example, for a poor person, the food must be available, in an equal proportional cost nearby to his or her home. It must be easily accessible. The person must be having access to food. The person must be having easy access in the form of, say, public distribution system, right? This is also known as ration system. So the person must be having access to the food. Then utilization is also an important pillar where the food must be nutritious. If the food is not nutritious, even if you're having food, it won't be, serving good to you. So the food utilization is also good and also important. Finally, the stability is also important. For example, say you are having food for around 2 to 3 months of the year. What happens for the rest of the months? Are you having access to the food or not? So your access to the food must be stable across all periods of time. So these are the four pillars. If even one pillar is not supported, your entire food security scenario will be collapsing. And this is the reason why some of the countries or some of the regions do not have proper provisions of food security. Now, with respect to this, we have a report known as Global Food Crisis, where we have an organization known as the Food Security Information Network. This is a technical group where they are actually analyzing and using their expertise and knowledge on food security and nutrition analysis all over the world. This is not only, let me tell you, with respect to India, this is with respect to the world. They will be highlighting and addressing critical data and information gaps. This is funded by the European Union, and the secretariat for this is at the UN World Food Programme, which is the world's largest humanitarian organization and the leading provider of school meals all around the world. It provides around 100 million plus children with foods. Okay. Now, the Global Report on Food Crisis 2023 has given us some highlights and crucial insights. The first is about the goal of ending hunger, or this is the SDG 2 by 2030 is not reachable or not possible because the population that were deprived of food and nutrition earlier has now actually increased, because around 260 million people in around 58 countries are in right now crisis condition. This is actually up from the figure of around 193 million in 2021. And this is actually available in this particular diagram. If you can see, in 2022, the figure has actually risen up. This is acute food insecurity, this is moderate food insecurity, and even if you take the historical trend is kind of increasing. So this is a concern for the global community at large. And if we see at the primary drivers of acute food security, according to this report, these are conflict or insecurity which is being resulted in this amount of countries. extreme weather events such as cyclones, heat waves, these are also one of the contributors. And finally, economic shocks. For example, we have the Russia-Ukraine crisis which is going on, and these crises have actually hit the supply chain of edible oils, wheat. We have also economic shocks in the past, the COVID-19, which was a huge economic shock. So these are the reasons of primary food insecurity. In addition to this, there are also amount of displaced people in the world. With respect to various displaced people, we have amount of refugees and asylum seekers which are also rising. So we must be very peculiar about identifying the people of actually why they are being food scarce. Now, what are the solutions ahead which are given by this report at large? The first is that we must be identifying the vulnerable people who are being affected due to such issues. Such as we must be identifying the conflict-ridden zones, such as the countries like Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and we must be effectively targeting those sections of the populations so that they can be relieved from hunger. Then we must be ensuring that they must be having access to healthy diets. This can be with respect to school meals to children. This can be with respect to providing food to pregnant women, girl child. So we must be making the provision of healthy meals, and we must also combine this effort with food fortification. Because if we fortify the food such as wheat and rice with essential vitamins and minerals so that they can have access to food also and nutrition also. So diets must be the main focus of our food security imperatives. We must be improving the quality of street food also, because this is an area where around 2.5 billion people consumes food from the street every day. So we must be also trying to improve the food safety standards with respect to these people. When it comes to rural infrastructure such as proper roads, cold storage facilities, proper amount of infrastructure, lights, right? So we must be building more and more infrastructure in the rural areas, because in the world, most of the poor are generally from the rural areas at large. Then the role of the local government cannot be ignored, because it is the local government or the grassroots government which will be doing the task of identifying the beneficiaries, who will be going to door to door for campaignings with respect to food security. This is especially in case of countries like India and also very deprived nations of Africa also. So we must be targeting the local government, because we must be starting everything good from the grassroots. Now, when we come to India, there are some extra imperatives. In addition to these solutions, India must be focusing on some extra imperatives. This is increasing the coverage of food grains under the National Food Security Act. We must be trying to ensure that all sections of the population are essentially covered under the National Food Security Act of 2013. Wherein we must be having efficient public distribution system, and also the government has taken steps of one nation, one ration card towards this respect only. Then there is a huge amount of food wastage in our country, especially in the case of Food Corporation of India or FCI go downs, and also in the transportation sector, where many of the food stocks are wasted just due to lack of storage material. So we must be focusing on food wastage scenario also. Then in India lately, over the last years or last few years, especially after the COVID crisis, we are seeing some fluctuating trends in the food inflation scenario. So food inflation can be sorted with specific government initiatives, especially in the case of tomatoes, which we are seeing right now. So we must be fighting this food inflation properly. And finally, there are many degraded lands in our agricultural sector, which can be effectively recovered by nature-based solution, because essentially agriculture is the primary food giver of our country. So we must be having nature-based solutions. This can be in the case of natural farming. This can be in the case of agroforestry. And in addition to food security alleviation, we can also achieve environmental significance at large. We can even increase the scope of afforestation in our country. So, extra imperatives for India would be such. Okay. Now, with respect to the next article, this is about the new data panel which the government has appointed to have a fresh relook at how the economic data is actually assessed in India. This is important with respect to GS3, where we have Indian economy and issues with respect to planning, mobilization of resources. And under this mobilization resources, we have this amount of statistics and its importance for India. Now, a similar PYQ, not exactly from this topic, but a similar topic is with respect to the difference in the calculation of GDP before the year 2015 and after the year 2015, and we have to say that how the methodology actually differed and what are the likely implications. So there is a possibility that if the panel which has been reconstituted to propose some of the amendments with respect to India's data or data gathering norms, so there can be a potential question in this scenario. Now, the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation is a nodal body for data gathering in India. It has constituted a standing committee on economic statistics to advise on official data which is generated by the National Statistical Office. Now, with respect to this, Professor Pranav Sen will be the chairperson behind this committee at large, who will be looking at the various terms of references devised by the ministry itself. Pranav Sen was India's first chief statistician, and with respect to this, the ministry has two wings under its ambit. The first wing is the National Statistic Organization, ANSO. The second is Program Implementation. Under the ANSO, we have the Central Statistics Office and the National Sample Survey Office. This was actually not isolated earlier. This was combined later and brought under NSO recently. Under the CSO, we have a computer center and some other divisions of CSO. So this was to give you just brief outlook of the ministry at large. Now, the statistics that this ministry collects will be based on administrative data, non-official data, field data, where a dedicated field staff will be collecting the various data which is required for various amount of sample surveys, and also the IMF or International Monetary Fund has a standard known as spatial data dissemination. This means that whatever the countries or whatever India's data are with respect to GDP, inflation, poverty, so everything, right, they have to be shared with the IMF at specific intervals of time. Right? Now, why should we need to collect data at all? We must be understanding that economics is a field where the total discipline of economics is standing on the availability of data. If we do not have data, how can we calculate the growth rates, the inflation rates and everything at large? So, data collection is very important and it depends on the quality of data to actually realize that how the policies in the future will be, and also the frequency of data is also important, because if we conduct a particular survey We have to conduct it at frequent intervals, not say after 10 years, 20 years. So there must be a frequency also. So quality and frequency are very important when it comes to economies data. Now, according to a paper titled as India Statistical System, Past, Present and Future, there are certain problems with our statistics. The first is that there is some lack of funding with respect to various field surveys and other kind of surveys. So this is not actually resulting in effective surveys at large. Then the people who are going to survey the common people at large, they are not having proper training with respect to data collection, technology utilization. Then there is a lack of automation, because automation and digital collection of data ensures that everything is in a particular order, right? And also we need less human intervention also. So automation is a very important element when it comes to data, and we are generally lacking behind than countries like China or even Western Europe. Our Indian data is also vulnerable to theft or tampering, and it has been seen in various cases that with respect to Aadhaar data, COVID data, these are being leaked easily by various hackers from different nations. And finally, data dissemination issues have been particularly highlighted by international bodies, and also at some point of time by the IMF also, that we are not getting a regular amount of data from India at large, because data dissemination is very important. Why? Because at the global level, we need to compare different countries. So IMF will be requiring data from India on various aspects which are agreed upon in the standards for their own decision making. So there have been various issues with respect to this also. Right. So that is why this committee was set up, and they will be reviewing what? They will be reviewing data with respect to industrial and services sector. This will be done via, modifying or doing away with some changes in the index of industrial production, consumer price index, which is our inflation data, and annual survey of industries. This list is not comprehensive. There are various other indexes also which are under scrutiny as of now. Labor force survey, like previous periodic labor force, will also be taken into consideration. Some gaps which are there in the data will be filled. Then there will be some pilot surveys to totally fine tune and bring in new approaches, such as we can also bring in artificial intelligence, machine learning in government data. Now, what is the need? Because we have seen over a certain period of time that the data collection by the NSO has lacked a certain amount of credibility. Right? This is especially with respect to the National Sample Survey Organization's household data, where a particular example comes to mind of the 2017-18 surveys, which actually was supposed to release in 2019, and this household consumption data would actually give various crucial insights on poverty rates in India. But it is alleged that due to the effects of demonetization, GST, due to implementation and its various impacts on the slowdown of the economy, due to that, the number of poor people in India is speculated to have risen, and government kind of did not release the data due to that particular reason. There has been certain allegations with respect to this. So the credibility is being sacrificed. Then, as of now, since we do not have updated data, for example, the census was held in 2011, so the census will be having proper amount of employees in India, several health data with respect to India. But we are relying on proxy data. That means we are not relying on the NSO collected data at large. We are relying on data from Employees Provident Fund, National Family Health Survey, etc. We are not having proper NSO data with respect to health, employment, like this. So the census is slated to begin soon. But the thing is that we do not have updated amount of data with respect to this. And finally, the panel has been instructed to go beyond design and methodology. We must be going beyond specific parametrics like the design of data, the methodology of collection of data, to exploring the broader issues. For example, the availability of administrative statistics. So we must be looking for administrative statistics in this respect, not only finding faults with our existing mechanism. Now, so the way forward for this community is to fine-tune the process of data collection. So the committee should be sitting together. It is a body of academics. It is a body of around 7 academics who will be sitting together and who will be looking at the various issues. So it is expected that they will be fine-tuning this. And after that, data and political will has to go hand in hand. No matter how negative the outcome of a particular survey is, there must be enough political will, enough political courage to actually go and publish it in the public domain, because it is for the better development and benefit of the economy at large. And finally, it has been suggested that we must be setting up a new statistical reforms commission so that it can regularly look into such issues at large. Okay. Now, the next news is with respect to the setting up of Miyawaki Forest in the region of Dwarka, Delhi. This is important from your syllabus perspective in both pre and mains, where we have topics like general issues on environmental ecology and conservation. Also, this has been a topic that came in 2022. Directly, it has been asking, the Miyawaki method is well known for A, B, and C and D options here. Now, if we can look at this picture here, if you can look at this patch of land, what does this look to you? These are what? These are tiny forests. And let me tell you, these are highly dense forests at large, right? Okay, so this method is known as Miyawaki Forest. Miyawaki Forest is actually, you know what? It is actually total transformation of a degraded land or a arid land into a proper tropical forest, right? So we know that there are various stages of ecological succession. That first, on a barren land, there will be nothing except then small shrubs and grasses. So to reach from nothing to a tropical forest at large, we must be going through stages like this. For example, the first plants to grow will be small grasses, then shrubs, then there will be around some amount of trees, small trees, then progression to the larger trees and more dense trees. In Miyawaki Forest, what we are doing, you are totally skipping the steps 2, 3, 4 and 5. That means we are doing what? We are going from directly barren lands to a totally transformed forest at large. Actually, the issue here is that there are around 300 years in between the stages 1 and stages 6. We can understand because forests take time to grow. That is why Miyawaki Forest by Akira Miyawaki, a Japanese botanist, was proposed, where we will be involving the native species at large and we will be planting them in high density in a particular area. So this can be around 1 kilometer or 1 square kilometer area. This can be 100 square meter area, whatever be the area. The thing is that it can be fit in a proper smaller area also. So we must be packing the seedlings in a dense manner. So there will be natural competition between them. We will be leaving them for amount of 1 to 3 years. So when the saplings will be growing into small mature trees, we will be watering them, caring for them, and essentially over the next 10 to 20 years, we will be getting a proper amount of tropical forest from this method, right? So the benefits will be that the plants will be drawing nutrients from being so densely packed from each other, and especially we are effectively reducing the forestation cycle from 300 years to 30 to 35 years. So if we start now, right, if the government start now, in planting forests in urban areas, in various rural degraded areas. So we can get a fully functional forest in around 35 years. It is 10x faster. It is even 30 times more the ability to sequester carbon dioxide from the environment, thus reducing the impacts of climate change and global warming. It is also 30 times more dense, and finally it helps in reducing the urban heat island, especially during summers in the cities. Right? Okay. Now, the last article is with respect to lab meat or making meat in the lab, where the author is proposing that we must be gradually moving from animal-based protein to lab-based animal protein. How this is actually done? This is actually done by extracting some cells from a living animal or a creature. We will be using that cell to do tissue culture. Tissue culture means that we will be multiplying the cells into as many number as possible to generate a tissue. And this tissue will be put into this bioreactor, which is a specialized machine, which will be multiplying further this tissue culture into proper meat. So, in this process, we can see that no animals were harmed in this process, right? And also, this is known as lab-grown meat, or also known as cultured meat, cell-based meat, or cultivated meat, because this was actually cultivated in a lab, right? And also, the US Agriculture Department has given a go-ahead signal to various private companies which are, planting artificial meat. The Indian Biotechnology Department had also given various incentives to private companies who are willing to start artificial meat farms in India, because there are very benefits out of this. First is that it is sustainable, because we know that the poultry industry, the beef industry, these industries emit methane, and methane is a global warming gas. Right? More methane into the environment causes global warming. So this is sustainable because we do not need any slaughter or rearing of animals in a large manner. Also, there is no slaughter at large. So this is kinder to the animal. This is animal friendly. Even PETA is supporting various companies like Upside Foods, Just, Super Meat and Finless Foods to generate more and more artificial meat. It is even safer because it is not using those slaughtering items. And finally, it is more nutritious because in this bioreactor we can combine various vitamins and minerals even with respect to food and meat. But there are some challenges. The initial challenges, because this is a new technology, this is even a high cost technology. There is no particular regulation so far in this industry, so we have to frame a proper amount of regulation. And finally, the consumer acceptance is also kind of a backward looking trajectory in this respect, because most of the consumers maybe will not be comfortable with the idea of a lab grown meat at large. So with this, let me conclude to this session. I hope you gained a lot from this discussion, and going forward, I wish you all the best for your preparation. We'll be meeting you again. All the best. Thank you.